Hey, good morning and welcome to Lightbob TV. So today we're going to talk about um, the fixtures. It's Fixture Tuesday. We're episode 3, so that means that it's the third week we talk about fixtures. And yesterday was an amazing episode on source color and all kinds of cool stuff. So today we're gonna complement this and start talking about how now we have these source, we have these effect, we have an idea of the color. Now we're gonna start putting a little bit more meat around the source and and the fixtures is not the result, it's where it starts. So again, um, knowing a little bit about it, we're gonna start to describe the nomenclature. We're gonna start describing the type of strategy we want to have as far as fixtures, and also try to anticipate the kind of problems that comes before we pick the fixtures, so that we know that certain type of fixture will work in certain environment or will not work. And this is most likely one of the hardest thing, because it's hard to make understand the creative time, the creative team, and the design people about what's the hierarchy, how we get there, why certain fixture don't belong in certain place, and why certain place requires certain fixtures, and that's it. And once we understand that, the level of mistake goes way down, because after we get into all the different needs and wanted, we can start to um, talk about the finishes, and that will be uh, later a future episode. So let's jump in fixtures. And the first thing is that we get is like, what kind of fixture should I get? And again, as we already been looking at in the previous week, um, is we have to make sure we have the client understand what kind of effect we're looking for. Now, in some case, it's the reverse. Manufacturer come in and they say, well, um, this is what you need. This is the fixture that you need. This is the type of source that you need. This is the type of hardware that you need. And then people don't know better. Our clients, they don't know better. Some of them are educated, but it's a very minimal group. Most of them will trust manufacturer. They will trust distributor. They will trust people that have experience and have been in the industry for 25 years, for 50 years, 100 years. Um, Even though the technology is totally different from 100 years, they still rely on the reputation. And 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 the what fixture should I use should come later in the conversation. But when you don't know what to talk previously to that, or what to say or question to ask, it's very difficult to foresee that fixture will come later. So it is also an agreement that's easy to have, because there is a physical object that both parties, you and the client, or the sales representative and the client, can agree on. It's a physical part of the universe, and they can see it, and they can say, yes, I like it, no, I don't like. And I remember a conversation with one client, and at the time I was doing custom fixtures and I was doing custom trims, and we had designed this trim that was almost a quarter-inch thick of stainless steel. And when we put that trim in the people's hand, it could have been a shower head. It could have produced no light. But as soon as they had that trim in their hand, they were like, "Oh my God, this is quality." The piece of metal was a quality piece of metal, but besides it, it was a good product. But it could have been anything. Just the fact that you have a product in your hand doesn't guarantee that it will deliver what's needed and wanted for the project. So that's where I come, and I want you to understand that once you understand your light needed and you can have a conversation about it, then you can tell the people that are supplying you with product what you want, and then they can be accountable to give it to you. And that way, you'll never be in a situation where you say, well, I'm not going to say never, but you're minimizing the situation where you talk to your suppliers, or at the end when you turn the switch on and you look at your lighting and you say, well, that's not exactly what I want, or that's not what I envision, or that's not what my consultant told me that it would look like. And that's the gap that I want to help you to minimize, if not eliminate, out of your vocabulary, so that you have image and you have ideas, and then you can communicate that, or communicate it to your professional, and they will get the right product to do the job. So that way, the question that, well, it was never properly defined, it was not what I intend, it was not what was promised to me, it never happened to you. Never. So again, and when I say that, I really mean it, because once you understand and when you start seeing and you can communicate what you want, I mean, it's very, very rare that you will not get what you want. So when a manufacturer when a manufacturer is presenting you with their light product, what's happening? Well, first of all, you don't know that it's very rare that they will tell you the light behavior. They will tell you photometrics. They will show you paper that has little cone of light, and it'll say if you put it at 8 feet, you're going to have that many numbers of lumen or candela or whatever on the floor. And for a person, a normal person that is not working in the lighting industry, that doesn't mean anything. And then they will tell you also what's missing is that what's the intent? Why are we using this product from page 20 instead of the product from page 17 or from page 36? Why? Because most of the manufacturers have big catalogs, and then they'll open it up and they'll say, this is what we're going to use. Now, what's the intent of that product? Why do you choose this product over that product? So again, once you start to understand and you know what you want, you know exactly why you're using this product. And they know too, because that's what you ask them. So the last point that is also important is that the salesperson that's in front of you that represent the manufacturer, also by experience will help you to say, well, we're not going to take the product that's at page 17 because A, B, and C. We're going to take the one that's page 34 because D, E, and F. And what you want are D, E, and F, not A, B, and C. So the conversation now is way more in agreement, and it's clear that you get what you want and they understand it. So it's a real it becomes a two-way communication, and also it's not just a monologue from a somebody that's got to attain his quota for the month. So by doing this, what's really happening is that we are now talking about really what's needed and wanted, not just a product decision. And you're making a decision that is based on what you understand and what you know. And sometimes it may require a demonstration. And you're going to say, well, Bob, I don't have that much time. Well, first, some demonstration happen in many different ways. It could happen live in the space, right? You take a product, you set it up, and you turn it on, and you say, here how it's going to look. And then you can see, and everybody can agree that you like it or not. Or it could be sending you to a location where they are already installed. And I work with a lot of international clients, and when I have most of the manufacturer I work have installation all over the world, and I can call them up and I'll say, hey, do you have an installation in that country? And they would say, yes, we did that project, and they can go there and they can look at it. Unless it's a very new product or something that is custom designed, then what I would do is I would make a mock-up. First, I make a little 3D print mock-up. Then I make a little, effect of it. And if still there is doubt, or there's insecurity because sometimes it's expensive, I will make a full-blown mock-up and show the client what it is. So again, it's a process, and the fixtures is there to back up the original dialogue of lighting effect that you're creating. Now, what happened when you are starting with the fixtures? Let's say you do this backwards. Well, this is where most projects are not. You can't do anything, because if you start with a fixtures and it doesn't define the outcome that you need, you're stuck. That's it. You're stuck. Some case you may be able to change the accessory. You may be able to add different filters. You may be able to change a little bit the source, but you will be stuck with what you have chosen, or somebody else did, which it's even worse. So now let's look at the fixtures by itself, because this is also a place where once you start in that wheel, you have to be coherent, and you will, with your design team, start to establish certain design standard. You like metal, colors, different shapes, and you will want the lighting to mimic or to be part of that program, and have the same finishes, or the same shape, or the same rhythm as the design, so that it can blend in, and you don't have to. It doesn't clash. It doesn't look like it doesn't belong there, or an afterthought. That's the worst thing. So the first thing that we're gonna be very, very careful about is the color, and colors is I would say probably beside having the wrong source will be the number two wrong thing that happened with lighting fixtures. Somehow there's a line that got forgotten, there's a number that got forgotten, and somebody along the specification line or the installation line or took a decision without knowing the rest of the history, and boom, here we go. We receive the product on the job, they're the wrong color, wrong finish, they're the wrong, and they don't match. So the color, I would say after being after the source will be number one. The other thing, and when I talk about this, the color is I saw some product being repainted, on the fly because it had to, but most of the time it's a very sophisticated process, and they cannot be done on the fly. So they have to be resand, they have to be stripped, they got to be retreated, they got to be cleaned, they got to be primed, and they got to be either static paint or the finishes of the color is a very and I'm not even talking about custom color, because most of the manufacturer nowadays, in the older days it was hard to get custom color, but now it is almost a standard. So you'll have an RAL code, and that's what they want, and that's super easy. Now, in the old days, it was a little harder. Where it gets a little funky is perhaps on the finish. You forgot to mention that you wanted a matte fixtures, or you wanted a clear coat, or you wanted, with textures. Again, color, just to wrap it up, is number one. Then you'll probably end up into also the lighting distribution. Some fixtures don't have any distribution. What you see is what you get, and some of them have different lenses, different optics, different choices of optics and accessory, and this is where it starts to get a little bit more how could I say, it gets harder since we talk about LED technology, because the most lens are embedded in the LED or in the fixtures, and contrary to the certain old technology where you could just add on some lens, or you could swap a cover, or you could swap a lens live, on the way. Having to change lighting distribution because of the lens is a little more complicated. And I'm not even going to go into beam spread, because beam spread is the degree of opening that you want your light. Because some people will advertise between this and this. Some people are going to say that, and most of them don't know what a beam spread is. And we'll have a whole program on just beam spread, but it just tells you how wide is the light, and this is in some cases not really important. But in some other case, when you want to create something very dramatic, or you want to highlight an area and you want to direct the attention somewhere, the distribution, the lighting distribution is very, very important. And it could be tricky with LED. And when you go into outdoor and street lighting, and it could be disastrous. Could be disastrous because now you have fixtures that are 40, 50 feet in the air. You have hundreds of them, and they have the wrong distribution. This is not fun. That's not a fun problem to have. So color, distribution, and the last thing that I found was the intensity. And again, like we see this, we see this. How could I say that? We see this all the time because we go to Home Depot, or we looked at a catalog, and it says 10 watt, equivalent to 60 watt. And then you see 20 watt, equivalent to 100 watt. And then you have a 5 watt that's equivalent to the truth about this is, again, it's not on the paper, is when you look at it. And also the function that you want this light to have. If you're performing something that requires a lot of light and you need it to in order to achieve a very specific task, the lighting level will need, I would recommend to do a test before starting to switch between one or another, between a 7 watt and an 11 watt. You're going to say, well, it's only 3 watt. Well, it could be a big difference in certain case. When you have higher or bigger project, higher ceiling, also the distribution and the wattage is very, very important, the intensity. Um, and also, I think one of the worst is when you start doing, I don't want to use wall wash, but when you start, let's say you want to have light up a wall and you want it to be even. And then you have fixtures that have different intensity for God knows what. Could be all kinds of reasons. Could be different chip, different dates of production. Could be different manufacturers. Could be all kinds of um, of reasons. But what happened is that your eyes is not a good. It's very hard for the eyes to tell you what intensity it is, but it will very, very clearly compare one with the others. So you will have your wall that looks the same, and then suddenly it looks like it's a bit dim, and then go back to that certain intensity. So as a comparative, the eyes is awesome. As analyzing the light level, not good. So that's why when we talk about intensity, it's very important to make sure that if you have a set of fixtures, if you have a set of sources, try to have them all the same, coming at the same time and from the same manufacturers. And you can see that, as the lighting gets older, it wears out, and then you come in with the same fixtures and you put it in there because one of them failed, and then suddenly you have one that is super bright and all the others are dim. So you will have to make some decision at some point, and it happens. The last thing that I'm going to say, and this is also very, very relative, is the color temperature. We talked about warm and cold yesterday. Again, staying in that bracket, you will want probably to be, once you decide a bit of the spectrum or the area or what's the color temperature of the vibe you want to create, you will also probably ask to compare, to view it with your own eyes. And I'm going to say that for warm and cold, and it's also true for red, green, and blue. So no matter where no matter what type of LED you're getting, at some point you may have some temperature, a 3000 from one company that is different from a 3000 from another. Just to give you some mass, 3000 degree is the temperature color, and without explaining what it means, is that you can have same numbers, different different colors and different intensity and color temperature. Um, so that's it. That's about it for that topic. The one thing that I would like to talk about is the quality of the fixtures. And again, um, I had a tremendous blessing I visit many high-end custom fixtures manufacturers all over the world, in Germany, in Italy, in South America, and Canada, United States. And I can tell you that the reputation of certain quality, not certain quality, but certain manufacturers and lighting fixture manufacturer, is very well gained, and it's totally maintained over the years. I was watching a video yesterday from an Italian manufacturer, high-end fixture manufacturer, and I remember having a clear conversation with the owner about LED, and they were telling me, well, LED will never go anywhere. This is not the future. We will, and and I was watching their video, and now they had to convert to LED and everything. And what they did is they probably cut 50% of their production. 50% of the fixture they were producing are no longer part of the catalog. Why? Because they didn't respond to their level of quality for that technology called LED. They didn't transmit the same emotion. They didn't transmit the same feeling. They didn't have that warmth that incandescent had. So for them, instead of working on their integrity and downsizing the quality of their product, they just took them out. And when I was talking to him recently, he said, Bob, like my strategy is that right now we redesign our product to keep the still high level of manufacturing and of our product. And what we're doing is that we're gonna revive our old line once the technology get more stable, or when we feel that we can deliver what we had in the past, which I thought that was a beautiful emotional statement, because instead of degrading their fixtures, they said, well, we're not going to produce those. And eventually, once we have the right technology, we will bring them back, which is awesome. And when you think about fixtures and you think about that statement, like the fixture is a tool, right? And it helps us to deliver whatever effect and whatever philosophy or whatever concept or and as a tool, you look at that. It's not the idea. It's very rare, and I'm going to say that it's very rare that the fixture leads the light. And now I'm just going to shut up for a second and tell you that this is not true at 1%. There's 1% lie in what I told you, because I work with some amazing craftsmen, woodworkers, glass worker, and once in a while we're going to do a creation, and they're going to call me up and they're going to say, Bob, how can I put light into this? But it's not a fixture. It's a piece of art. So that's why I want to make a big distinction, that if we do art, and it has no lighting value or engineering value. It is what it is by itself, and it has its own life and its own story. But when we use light in architecture and we use it in indoor or outdoor, we treat it as a tool. We treat it as it has to deliver and help us to bring wherever we're going and whatever we're doing with it. So we never start with the fixture. So that's the bottom line, is the fixture is there to translate whatever lighting effect you want to create, whatever source you want to work with. You want to. It's part of the delivery system. It's not. It's not the first thing. The first thing is you decide what lighting feeling you want to go. You want to create. Do you want a directional? You want a general diffuse, and then the fixtures will come after that to deliver whatever you need into that order. So as a I would say as a translator, because it'll take whatever technology and bring it into whatever effect you want. So as a translator, um, it takes your intention of directional or general diffuse, and it convert it into something, because light by itself doesn't exist. So we need some kind of piece of hardware to make it happen, and that's where the fixtures start to work, and that's where also the intervention of the different players comes together to create that physical parts that's going to translate the light. So, of course, if you don't have a clear intention, if you don't want to, you don't know what you want, it's very hard to talk to the people in at the shop, or to go on and design your own fixtures, if you don't know what if you have no intention. I'm going to design a fixture, and it's going to be round, and it's going to do this, and it's going to do that, and then I'm going to put a light in it. Okay, what is it doing? Well, I don't know. Do you see like where I'm coming from? And I would say about 25 years ago, I was in Murano. I was taking course. I was, like sharpening my glass skill, and I was on a little island with a bunch of glass blowers, and I was astounded to understand, to see that no one understand how light and glass work. They knew on natural daylight, but when it comes to artificial, they didn't understand. So I went to the hardware store, and I bought a bunch of lights and sockets and transformers and plugs, and then everybody was freaking out because 90% of people are afraid of electricity. So I started connecting stuff, and I started to show the people that I was studying with in that master class how light interact with glass, and how certain transparency and diffusion and all of that is different than when we have solid glass and it doesn't produce anything. But it doesn't mean that this doesn't have a value compared to this, because I show them that part of the creation and the conception of a glass piece that you want to light up, once you understand what you want to do, which most probably will be a general diffuse fixtures, what's going to happen is that the layering of glass, having clear glass and opaque glass and clear glass, will create different shadows, will create different transparency, will create different patterns, will create all kinds of other things that, if you don't understand how glass work, if you don't understand how light work with glass, you'll do it and you'll say, well, I don't know why I have this result. This is not what I wanted. And I don't understand why my piece of glass is very bright at the bottom and very dark at the top. Well, it's because you cut with all your layers, you cut the glass, the light ray, the light beam, so that they wouldn't go up. But if you want to build your lighting fixtures with transparency, and then at the top going with a little more opaque, the light would have traveled with the glass. And that's just a parenthesis. But just to let you know that when we do glass and when we do fixtures and when we understand where we're going with the light, the rest is very easy to choreograph, yeah, to choreograph with, and to start to assemble and to bring in the the different mountings and bringing this different hardwares and bringing, once you understand where the glass goes, how the material works, the rest is pretty easy. So where do we start when we, as a lighting designer, where do we start to, what's our reference, right? Earlier I talked about the some brands that have been in the market forever. Uh, so of course we have brands. There's some brands that are, like very, some you never heard, but doesn't mean that they don't make a quality product. So our first reference will probably be encountering a catalog sheet. So you get a catalog sheet. You go on the internet, you get a PDF, you look at it, you look at the way it's built, you look at the image, you and and that 90% of the time that tells you what kind of product you have, if it's a copy or if it's a real one. Of course, the brand. Then you have the aesthetic. Does it fit and does it match with your design intent, right? You decide you want to have a directional light. You look in the catalog, you find something that gives you directional light. You find a good brand that you like. Now is the aesthetic. Do you want to have a very heavy, bulky fixtures, or you want to have something very fine and very light, very aerial, very, so those are the three things we start with. And of course, like along the way, you'll have to do a specification. So you will probably gonna look how now you say, okay, this is what I want, this is the finish I want, this is the color. So you're gonna have to start looking at how you're gonna put this on a piece of paper so that it reflects what you want, what color, what shape, what mounting, what, and all of those little details are going to add up, and they're going to be part of the specification that you're going to start building for your program. And then you're going to start thinking about, okay, where do we get these fixtures? Well, these fixtures come from another country, and the delivery is 8 to 12 weeks or 12 to 16 weeks. Well, guess what? This is very nice, and it's, but how does this affect the delivery of your project? So now what you have to do is you have to reverse engineer your product. Okay, we're opening on that date, and I got to figure 16 weeks of delivery, and then I got to figure out a 4-week installation, so that's 20 weeks. And by then, that means that they have to be ordered, blah, 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 blah. So by every time we look at a fixtures and we decide that's going to be it, and this can be, sometimes we don't know. Somebody brings a piece of paper and it says, okay, this is what I want. And then you start investigating, and then you realize it's making in another country, and then you realize that this is a very, first of all, it's not approved. So by the time you find out that it's not approved for America, or it needs a special approval, and then that's going to be way more and this and that, maybe it would be easier to take a product that's locally made and just, run with it. So if you don't understand what you want to achieve, and you cannot debate it and explain it clearly to your client, you may end up in some conversation that are not fun, and that are not necessary. It's not necessary to talk about something that, it's not achievable or not needed and wanted in this country. So again, fixtures, will deliver what you feel, how the space will communicate, how you're going to behave in that space, and all of that. But first, you got to understand that the fixtures is not what start the conversation. Look at that. Yeah, well, some emergency going. So I just want to say that that was um, that was fun, and there's way more to talk about fixtures. But today, I think if we understand that concept, that the fixtures are there to support our knowledge and our how could I say that, our concept and our ideas and how we deliver our project, then we understand that fixtures, what their role is in the whole hierarchy. So thank you. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the manufacturers, and that's very. I found some amazing stuff. Although I told you a little bit about them today. Tomorrow we're going to have something super exciting, and hope you learn a few things. And yeah, thanks.